Hello, my name's Ajay Ryan. You're watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. Today we're very happy to welcome Dr. David Earle. David Earle is the Vice President of the Universal Peace Federation here in the UK. Dr. Earle has been married for almost 25 years to his wonderful wife Patricia, and together they have 4 children. Dr. Earle, thank you so much for joining us on The Defining Moment.
My pleasure.
Well, the topic today is Interfaith Begins at Home. And there's actually quite a remarkable story that you have to tell us all about that. However, before you do, can you share with us a defining moment from your life?
Well, in thinking back, I would have to cast my mind back about 30 years to 1977. And that was when I first heard the ideas and principles which underpin the Universal Peace Federation. And to backtrack a little bit further then, there were 2 streams in my life. One more intellectual, scientific. I'm a biochemist and science teacher by trade. And the other more religious or spiritual. And I can remember very clearly when I first encountered these ideas and principles, it was as if there had been 2 strands to my life. And these 2 strands somehow came together. It was almost like a mental experience, seeing my life in a totally new perspective. And also I would say I found, in a way, an explanation or answers about life that I didn't even know I was searching for. Like everything became very clear, very crystallized. And I had this feeling that all of my dreams, my ideals, could actually become reality through the application of these principles that I'd so newly come across.
So back in 1977, how old were you then?
I was 25 then.
And so obviously now all these many years since then, you've gone on to do, as I said earlier, quite remarkable things, at least in my opinion. And for us to kind of find out more about that, I'd like to ask you first of all, what first grabbed your interest about this whole area of interfaith?
I think it's partly my innate desire that I've had for many, many years, since I was about 10, 12 years old, to travel all over the world and see as much of the world as I could. And I was always very intrigued by programs on television, like David Attenborough's programs about life in different parts of the world. And I had this desire to travel everywhere and see everything. That's a part of the story. But then when my wife and I returned to Birmingham in England to live in 1991, we'd been living in the United States for about 7 years, I was working there, then we found, in a way, that the world had come to us. And Birmingham is such a unique city in many respects, with a population of less than 1 million, about 980,000, with 140,000 Muslims and 30,000 Sikhs and 20,000 Hindus and 120-30 Muslim mosques and all of that. Somehow that was an amazing experience to enter into that kind of environment. And then I took an interfaith course that was on offer at that time, studying each of the world's 6 major religions for a period of 6 weeks. And that then opened my mind, and then subsequently Patricia took the same course, and we found ourselves just immersed in interfaith from that moment on. So it's been a journey from that point in 1991, a gradually developing journey where we've encountered the other people of such diverse cultures and faiths and ethnic backgrounds, and then those people have become an integral part of our life through interfaith activities.
Now, having sparked your interest in interfaith through those earlier seminars you went to, I guess you obviously found that there wasn't a place where you could go to convene, and hence you started something in your own home, and that's what I want to get on to. And in fact, can you tell us, how did you actually begin? Which faith community did you approach first?
Well, my wife is a big part of the story here. I come from a Methodist background, my wife from a Catholic background, so we are an ecumenical couple in the smaller sense of the word, the Christian sense. And she was very proactive in reaching out to ladies, particularly when our children were small. She would go to wait for them at the school playground and meet ladies from India and Pakistan and Jamaica and different parts of the world. And then she started inviting them then to our home. But in the beginning, it was mainly, I would say, Christian, people from Christian background, and particularly she started a women's peace meeting, and the majority of women who were coming at that time in the early 90s were Christian. But then very quickly, they would bring their friends, and then we would meet people from other faiths, and gradually it evolved into, in her case, an interfaith meeting. But then that would open doors very naturally for us into other people's homes and into the gurdwaras and the temples and the mosques and viharas and so on. So it started out, I would say, more Christian, but then gradually developed through individuals and networking to become truly interfaith.
And this very fact that you started it at home, what do you think makes the home such an effective environment for interfaith work?
I guess it's simply the fact that you feel comfortable, and it's a relatively neutral environment. Of course, we go into each other's homes and we have maybe pictures of our particular faith community or icons or whatever. But it's the fact that it's a neutral environment, and it's a place of family, of children, the commonality that exists, whether it's my home or somebody else's home. And there's something very unique. If you meet somebody for the first time and then you go to their home, you learn so much more about them from the atmosphere and the place where they live. You build up an atmosphere in your home that is kind of gives added weight to the experience of meeting somebody. So I think it's those factors, that it's a neutral place, but also just the sheer fact that it's a home, with all the different things that go along with that.
Yeah, and what are those challenges? If I, for example, decided this is a great idea and I want to take that as a model and start doing interfaith or start inviting people to my home, what are the typical challenges that I'm going to face?
I guess the main challenge is just to, in many cases, well, to find the time to go and visit one another, to actually make the effort to go and do that. But then, in doing that, sometimes we have to overcome barriers of race or ethnicity or religion, and fear, possibly prejudice, all those things which make interfaith such a valuable thing, in my opinion, for getting to know one another and discovering our common humanity. So it's just, I think, the making the effort, but then overcoming those things which tend to keep us apart. Plus, I would say it's not a natural thing, perhaps, to these days. There's a lot of fear about. We tend to we've become very individualistic, and we stay within the confines where we feel secure. That aspect of overcoming fear and encountering the other.
And how did you actually break the ice with all these different nationalities, races and cultures in your home? How did you do it?
In some cases it was just a question of inviting them to come to our house for coffee, a cup of coffee and a chat, or to come for dinner, and then getting to know each other like that. In other cases it's a question of going to visit other people. So, for example, a few years ago my wife had the idea to make, she makes a very nice Belgian soup. So we, during the time of Ramadan, we have many Muslim families as our friends, then she would make this soup, and then we would take it to help them break their fast. So we would go to them and offer this, and that was a very lovely experience. And then at the end of Ramadan, often they would repay the compliment, and they would come to us with the special food that they share at Eid. There was this kind of give and take, a very natural sharing.
And what about in terms of the capacity of your home to actually hold such events? Because I understand sometimes you have up to 100 or more people in your own home.
Well, in the early 1990s, then we had a relatively small living room which could seat about 10 people, and my wife would have some of her friends, and they would share together. But then when more interest was generated, particularly in the women's peace meeting, then we felt we ought to have a larger room where people could be more comfortable. And fortunately, the house that we bought had several garages, and one of them was a double garage. And we did an internal conversion to make that into a sort of purpose-made meeting room, which could seat about 50 people maximum. And that was adequate for a while, but then as the interest grew and more people came to the meetings and functions we held, then we decided to knock out the back wall of that double garage meeting room and build an extension with doors, sliding doors that could open, and now we can seat fairly comfortably 80 people and up to 100, and we bought our own little PA system, and so we're kind of self-contained, self-sufficient, up to about 100 people.
So you've just basically done a DIY interfaith centre on your own doorstep?
That's right, yes. Unfortunately, the house, when we bought it, we didn't realise it had that capacity, but it did. It had the capacity to expand and develop, and now we're actually thinking still of one more development, of possibly knocking out a wall that would give us maybe another 10 or 15 seats. Yes,
and that's truly inspiring, because it's obviously your home, but you're offering it to that community and inviting them in and serving them. I think that's a wonderful thing. But I also wanted to ask you about your children, because you have 4, and do they resent the fact that there are always these other people there, or how did they handle that situation?
I think, yes, when they were smaller, then it wasn't so easy for them to have so many people coming, and also taking up our time that we wouldn't necessarily spend with them. But as they grew older, then they started to enjoy people coming, and also our children are quite musical, so we would ask them to play some music if we had people for supper, and they began to realise, well, first of all, that they could give joy and happiness to other people through their music, but also that each person who came was like a window into another world. So that was very inspiring when they could see that, and also they got involved in serving tea and coffee, and they became more public-minded. And for Patricia and myself, we could see that then they're growing up free from a lot of the trappings and prejudice that perhaps our generation had to deal with or grew up with. And I can see there's a tremendous freedom inside them, and now they enjoy people coming. In the early days, we would have to clean up before people came, and so if we were cleaning up the house, they would say, "Oh, who's coming?" But now they enjoy preparing the house and making people feel welcome when they come to the door, and it's a very lovely family type of experience.
Well, David, if you compare what you're doing to the international bodies that exist for interfaith, the Congress of Faiths and these other, even I guess the UN itself, which is to some extent trying to bring people together, how do you think your grassroots work actually compares?
The international level of activities as well as the grassroots, they have a role to play. They each have a unique role to play. You probably know that the Universal Peace Federation is trying to introduce at the UN level an interreligious council. And while that's a very good idea, I feel from having observed, for example, what's happening at the political level, that many times what goes on at the international or national level is somehow divorced from what's happening at the local level or the grassroots level. So I feel that both are important. They both have a role to play in terms of religious leaders coming together and making various efforts for peace. But also there needs to be a connection between what's happening nationally, internationally, and the grassroots. And certainly people who serve on any kind of national or international body need to be in touch with what's going on at the grassroots. That's true politically, I believe. And I believe it's true as well in terms of interfaith, that if the top is disconnected from the bottom, then things don't work. Whatever is decided, for example, at the top has to carry people along with it, so in terms of a political agreement or solution. So I think both are important, but personally I think the grassroots has a unique role to play. For example, in Birmingham, in terms of diffusing tensions between people, as well as overcoming prejudice and stereotypes. The real work goes on at the grassroots level, and ideally it should be connected to what's happening.
So are you getting the recognition and support for what you're doing from the high-level institutions?
Yes, I would say certainly that's true. Politically, we've had very good support from the City Council. Several mayors of Birmingham have been involved in our work, even coming to our home to support our fundraising efforts for projects overseas. The Deputy Lord Lieutenant, the Queen's representative in the West Midlands region, is a very good friend and supporter of our work, Dr. Ajay Tonk. My wife recently had a very good discussion with the head of Equalities in Birmingham City Council about some activities and projects with women. But within the faith communities, certainly we've been able to come into contact and make friends with the majority of the faith leaders, Sikh, Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, Christian, and we would count them as our friends, and also they're doing wonderful work together in the city, yes.
Okay. Now there is this phrase, charity begins at home, and today we're looking at the topic of interfaith begins at home. What made you decide to kind of choose Birmingham, or that Birmingham itself was going to be a place in which to start something at home and extend it to the community and to the city?
Well, my wife and I chose to come and live in Birmingham for family reasons, because of family connections. My parents were living there and had just recently retired in 1991. I don't particularly like cities myself. I grew up in a small village in the countryside, 500 people. But in terms of interfaith work, then we felt we found that Birmingham just has a unique flavour, a unique mixture. It's very cosmopolitan. It's multi-everything.
In your work, as you've been growing this interfaith community, what has been your greatest success to date?
That's a tough question to answer. I would say, in one respect, helping people to overcome prejudice and build friendships across pre-existing barriers and to make friends. So in our meetings, then people have made friends, have networked, have overcome all kinds of things towards one another. Sikhs towards Muslims, Christians towards Hindus, all that kind of thing. But I would have to say probably the greatest success, if that's the word, is having a large number of friends from other faiths, other traditions, other backgrounds, who've virtually become part of our family. I can think of 4 or 5 elderly couples off the top of my head who are like surrogate grandparents for my children. People I would happily trust to send my children to their homes and know that they would be well cared for as if they were the children of those families. So I think having people who can come to my door any time of the day or night, who feel part of our family, who come to meetings because it's a home, because they feel at home, I think that's perhaps the greatest success on a very human level.
Well, thank you very much, David, for coming in today and sharing with us about your interfaith work. I hope it continues to prosper. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the invitation.
You've been watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. If you'd like to see more of our shows, we're on the web at www.definingmoment.eu. Thank you for watching, and we wish you all the best.